How to create a character for your brand. Building a brand character isn't about being cute. It's about creating connection, personality, and memorability. When executed well, a character becomes a strategic storytelling device that makes your brand feel human, even in industries that people perceive as very boring. Think about insurances. No one looks forward to shopping for insurances. We all hate it. Once you submit your information, you get 1,000 calls, you don't really know where to start. But when you think about insurances and when you think about insurances in terms of marketing, you think about probably the Gecko or Progressive. Because Geico and Progressive really have changed the game with their characters, the Gecko and Flo. Those characters inject humor, consistency, and relatability into otherwise really dry services. And over time, they really have become household names, turning boring insurance into something people actually enjoy seeing in commercials. And that's really the power of having a character. It makes your business approachable, humanize it, your brand is not forgettable. But how do you get started? Let's say you want to create a character for your brand. The first step should be meeting your brand. So before you design a character, before you think about the creative elements, you have to understand your business. So ask yourself, what service or product am I selling? Who is my audience? Do I want the character to add humor or feel exciting? Should the character be professional, trustworthy, or emphasize authority? Take the Social Wisdom as an example. The Social Wisdom is a playful, insightful brand that embodies curiosity and creativity, and I'm trying to approach marketing in a way that provides clarity and makes it fun. And now you can compare that to a tech company. They also try to build trust and protection and also try to educate their clients. So it's pretty much the same process, but a different outcome. So think about your services, think about what you offer, and what does your brand truly stand for. And then step number 2, brainstorm the character. You want to start very broad. Very broad. So you want to divide your ideas into different categories. So for example, animals, superheroes, everyday items, or even abstract figures. So here's some ideas to get started. You can think of animals. The usual animal we all think of is the goat, greatest of all time. And the goat symbolizes tenacity and excellence. Or you have the lion. The lion represents leadership and courage, really perfect for bold brands. Or you have the owl, and the owl really stands for wisdom and trust, and you can even enhance the owl if you give them a pair of glasses. We also have the eagle. The eagle symbolizes freedom and nonconformity. You can have a fox in a tie, cleverness, quick thinking, and professionalism. You can also have a cat in a cape, for example, and the cat really stands for agility and encourage a playful twist. And of course, you can also go with the classic superhero. A classic superhero is instantly recognizable and very powerful. Or you can also turn it into a warrior situation, and a warrior shows strength and resilience. And then unexpected items. So for example, you can have a talking car, or you can have a cooking spoon, and unexpected items can really add humor and a sense of surprise. So let's dive into the real world. If you look at the real world, we have MailChimp, and MailChimp's character is Freddy the Chimp. At a first glance, you think, oh, it's a quirky, winking chimpanzee. But it really embodies MailChimp's friendliness, slightly cheekiness, and just a brand personality, which made email marketing feel less intimidating, especially for small businesses. So having a character can really help to build a bridge between your product and the consumers because it's more playful. And then step number 3, you want to humanize the character. So this is the step where the mascot becomes your brand ambassador. You want the character to feel real, so you need to give it a real personality and a real name. You want to give it a name because we all know that names stick. Think about Tony the Tiger or Mr. Clean. Whether you hear Tony the Tiger or Mr. Clean, you immediately see the image in your head. And that's why names are really powerful, and that's why you should also give your character a name. When searching for a name, you want to make it memorable and you want to keep it short. You want to keep it punchy. So for example, instead of saying the owl, you can say Odin the Owl. When developing your character, you also want to develop traits. So is your character witty, serious, playful, or courageous? And those traits really dictate how the character would speak, so to say, in your social advertisement, in your social media post, or anywhere where you want to display the character. I recommend that you write a little biography or like a little backstory about your character. You can keep it very simple. 1 to 2 sentences are definitely enough, but you want to tie the character into your brand's values. So for example, you could say, Odin the Owl has helped accountants guide them through bookkeeping and making it very simple. You also want to think about visual anchors. And visual anchors are props or clothing that makes the character instantly recognizable. And when you think about props, we can use glasses to portray wisdom. You can use a cape to show protection. You can use the tie to showcase professionalism. So think about, what is your brand all about? So what clothing items or props items should your character have? And if you say, I do not want to give my character any props or any clothing items, that is fine, but it really puts another spin. It makes them even more recognizable, even more memorable, if they have something that ties back to your brand. So if you're a cooking brand, maybe your character has a spoon in the hand or a cooking hat, or as an accountant, if let's say you sell a bookkeeping software, they can have glasses or maybe a tie or maybe a little briefcase. So think about what makes sense, what props and clothing items make sense for your service, for your industry. So let's think about a real world example. Go from Progressive works not because she's quirky, but because she's consistent. Her personality, she's friendly, she is slightly goofy, and she is helpful. And those character traits are carried across every campaign, making her feel very familiar. And step number 4, you want to add a tagline. Your character needs a voice, and the tagline is where the voice shines. You want to tie the brand values into character traits. For wisdom, you can say smart tactics, winning results. For courage, you can say protection you can count on. But when you create a tagline, you want to keep it short, you want to keep it punchy. So aim for about 3 to 6 words. You do not want to go on run-on sentences, you want to have it quick, straight to the point. And you can also think about, what did other brands do in the past? And I'm not saying copy other brands, absolutely not, but you can look what they done in the past. And one great example is Nike and Nike's Just Do It. When you think about Just Do It, you think about Nike, but you also think about all the athletes. You think about all the advertisement campaigns that they have run just around that slogan. And it's a super powerful slogan that encompasses a lot what the brand stands for. So when you think about a tagline, think about, what does your brand stand for? What feeling you want to evoke, what emotion you want to invoke, and how can you use that tagline in your advertisement. Maybe you come with a tagline right now, maybe in a year or 2 years from now you change your tagline. It's fine to try to find yourself and to really develop a brand. And again, brand is not built in a year, it's not built in 2 years, it takes a lot of time to build a brand. And you can always modify, you can always adjust, whether it's your character or whether it's your logo or the brand tagline, as long as it's always going in the same direction. So just to give you an example of what I'm referring to, you'd now take your character. Let's say you decided to take the goat, because the goat is the greatest of all time. And her name is Gabby. So now we have Gabby the goat. What tagline could we use for Gabby the goat? We could say always climbing higher, built on tenacity, or the greatest for a reason. These taglines fit the goat, but can also fit a variety of industries. So whether it's built on tenacity or greatest for a reason, that is pretty much universal, that you can apply to any service or industry. So you want to match the tone to the persona. Are you a serious brand? Go towards authoritative taglines. Are you a playful brand? Then lean more towards quirky taglines. And step number 5, you want to define the color scheme. As we all know, colors evoke emotions, and you can do a lot with colors. You can lean into color psychology. So let's say blue is more for trust, green is more for like nature, a shade of brown, tan could be more like eco-friendly. So you can lean into that color palette, but you want to define the colors for your characters, for your brand, for your overall appearance. And if you already have existing brand colors that you want to use to develop for your character, great. And if you want to start from scratch, then here's a few things that you should consider. I recommend to create at least 3 different color palettes for your characters. So you can create one color palette about shades within the same family. So for example, different shades of blues or green or pink. Or you can use bold contrast, so for example red and yellow, just like what McDonald's did. Or you can lean towards like neutral and accent colors, so you can use black with maybe like a gold touch if you want to go more of a luxurious route. But here's a tip and something that I experienced in the past. I developed brands before, I developed logos and characters before, and I worked very close with agencies, so design agencies, meaning I developed ultimately the entire concept and then brought that concept to design agency to bring it to life. And that is mostly the way it goes, unless you're a designer and you can do it all. But I would not turn to AI to create your logo. I would ask a professional to do it, because they can create different variations and you can always go back and refine it. But let's say you decide to move forward with an agency, a design agency that helps you bringing the concept to life. You want to make sure that you provide as much guidance, as much input as possible. So you want to tell them, this is my tagline, this is my logo character, this is the name, this is the backstory, this is what my brand is all about, this is what I want the character to be. You also want to give them in a direction of, should my character be in a serious style? Do I want them to be more cartoony, so you have like the thick outlines? Do you want it to be more like a comic book approach? What style do you want? While the design agency can also give you different outcomes and of course their recommendation, from experience I always find it easier if you provide them with as much information as possible. And the reason why: most design agencies either offer you a flat rate price or they bill you by the hour. But regardless, it can get pretty expensive. So if you already have a general idea in your head that you just want to bring to life, I say tell the agency what you want. Otherwise, they will be tapping in the dark, suggesting a lot of variations, a lot of options that you might not like, and then it's a back and forth. So they go back to the drawing board, coming back with a new design, and then you don't like that. So it's always easier if you just provide what you like, what you're looking for, and then they can create different variations, different design options for you to review. Because designers work much faster when they're just not guessing what you like, but when you actually tell them what you like. And then step number 6, develop the concept. So in this stage, you want to compile everything: the character profile, the color scheme, the tagline, and you want to work that into a concept brief. And you want to use that concept brief to send it to the designer to create multiple drafts. And this is where the collaboration matters. You want to provide feedback. You want to be specific. So for example, make the owl's eyes larger to emphasize wisdom, or make the brim of the glasses thicker. It's much easier to tell the designer exactly what you want rather than saying, I don't like it, create something else. And just to get a reference from the real world, when you think about the Michelin Man. The Michelin Man was created somewhere around 1894, and they tested a lot of different sketches. So there was a lot of work put into creating this Michelin Man, and they ended up with one of the most iconic characters in history. And then step number 7, test before you finalize. I always recommend to test your designs before you just throw it out there in the real world. So especially if you're torn between designs, you want to test them. And there are tools such as PickFu or Usability Hub to run focus groups with your target audience. So the tool itself lets you choose your demographic, your interest, your household income, so you can really nail it down to your ideal customer who would potentially buy your product, and then get real life feedback from those potential customers. So you want to ask questions in that survey: which character feels more trustworthy, and which tagline is more memorable, which color scheme do you prefer, or which color scheme do you think fits the service better. And what I like about using those tools, you can upload your files directly to the system, you choose your target audience, and then you can purchase add-ons. So for example, there are different ways where you can run it, so you can have both images flash at the same time, or this one is visible for 2 seconds and then the other one is visible for 2 seconds, and then the computer will ask the viewer, which one do you remember, or what do you remember. So you can really dive deep, develop a character to really see what resonates with an audience, or what sticks, or what needs to be improved. Those surveys also help you to get feedback. So You can either just simply have a rating system where they rate your designs, or you can ask for actual feedback where the consumer will type it in what they see. And of course, these things are not free, you have to pay for them, but in the long run, when you're developing a brand, it makes sense to invest into tools and surveys like that. Because when we develop a character, we don't want to simply trust our gut feeling. At the end of the day, data-driven decisions prevent costly rebrands later on. Before this video ends, I want to throw in a bonus tip. And my bonus tip is think about creating a companion or a sidekick for your character. One character is great, but a sidekick can really enrich your brand even more, can really help your other character to shine. So think about what other brands are doing. When you think about the guy called Gecko, he's often paired with a rotating cast, especially the caveman, which added more depth and variety in their campaign. Or you can also go back to what we talked earlier about Progressive. Progressive uses Flo as like the main character, but her co-star Jamie becomes a secondary character that gave her, Flo, someone to banter with. So making the ads feel a little bit more dynamic. Or another great example is Liberty Mutual. Again, you can see that those are all mostly from insurances because it's kind of like a boring sector, and when you bring characters to it, when you combine those companions and sidekicks, you make them even more exciting. So when we think about Liberty Mutuals, all of their ads feature Doug, who is this overly enthusiastic spokesperson, and then his sidekick, the Limo Emo. And the duo works great because they bring a contrast to each other. So Doug is more of the exaggerated energy, like the comic delivery, while the emo plays a straight role, just relying on body language and humor. So together, they create a memorable balance that makes Liberty Mutual really stands out in a crowded space of insurances. And here's why companions work. Contrast creates memorability. Pairing two personalities, so for example, serious versus playful or confident versus awkward, makes the interaction more entertaining. It keeps your campaign fresh. The sidekick can step in as a focus, giving your main character a break while still staying consistent. You also expand relatability. When you add a sidekick, it might appeal to different audiences. So for example, kids versus adults, humor versus authority. It also helps to build storyline. With multiple characters, you can create mini narratives. You can really dive into storytelling, which is far more engaging than a one-off appearance. But how do you create your companion? You want to start by defining the relationship. Is the companion a best friend? Is it a total opposite? Or is it a rival? And then you want to decide the role. Do they highlight humor? Do they reinforce authority? Or do they simply bring warmth to your commercial? And then you want to think about the traits. You want to balance the traits. If your main character is bold and authoritative, then the sidekick shouldn't be bold and authoritative. It should be the opposite. It should be more softer and approachable. And then you want to test the dynamics. So create simple scripts with both characters. Do their dialogue feel natural to you? Does it add more entertainment? Does it add more clarity? At the end of the day, I would always go with a sidekick or companion, whether you use it or not, but I would always include it in the development process. I think a sidekick, especially when you think down the line of maybe animating it or creating more storytelling or going into like the commercial space or even the digital ads, I think having a sidekick is always more appealing. It just helps to reinforce your brand. It helps to bring out another side that I think works very well with the characters, like bouncing off with the main character. But at the end of the day, creating a character for your brand is more than just a design exercise. It's a marketing strategy. The right character becomes your spokesperson, your campaign anchor, and the emotional bridge between your business and your audience. So whether it's a gecko, talking candy, or owl wearing glasses, the best characters become cultural touchpoints. Because at the end of the day, characters are not being remembered for the logo, because characters are not being remembered for the logo alone, but they're remembered for the personality, the way they make you feel when you see them, and the connection they build. So if you want your brand to stand out in the crowded market, don't just create a logo. Create a character people can root for, laugh with, and trust. This also led us yet again to another episode of the Content Marketing Cheat Sheet podcast. And if you thought about, you know what, I want to create a character for my brand, I just don't know where to start, then reach out to me at Nina@thesocialwisdom. I created characters before for brands, wrote them out for online ads, for out-of-home advertisement, and they just really bring this fun, playful side to your brand. So you can be very creative with this, and I would love to help you get started, so reach out to me. And this also led us yet again to another episode of the Content Marketing Cheat Sheet podcast. I'm so glad you tuned in today, and I cannot wait to see you next time. Until then, goodbye, or how we say in Germany, auf Wiedersehen.